Welcome to 24-Hour Sports. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we got them papers. Usually when we got them papers on this channel, that means we getting serious, we getting to it. I'm reacting to Todd McShay's mock draft 2.0. I have so much to say about this mock draft that I want to preface it by saying one thing. This is what NFL GMs and execs around the league are saying. This is not a all prospect big board. We're not saying who's the best player, who's better than who. We're looking at projections and what these GMs think. So at the end of the day, this is everybody's opinion. And I want to know in the comments what you think, but let's get straight into it. We got the Colts trading up with the Bears for that #1 pick, and they're getting Bryce Young, but I want to talk about this. Let's stop for a moment. We talk about who is the #1 quarterback, and it's interesting because I think Bryce Young is the guy who can do the most with the least. I think he comes in and he's winning games fresh out the box. I think CJ Stroud can do the same thing, but he's not the playmaker like Bryce Young. He can't improvise like Bryce Young. It's really the athletic profile. Bryce Young, I think Bryce Young and Will Levis may run better than CJ Stroud, but we look at Will Levis. This is the most controversial guy. Anthony Richardson, I understand, but Will Levis, guys are higher. They're different on him. And I think it's because Will Levis is closer to a finished product than Anthony Richardson. And the puzzle is all scrambled. Think somebody just gives you a puzzle, dumps it out the box, but it's the perfect puzzle. And that's what we're talking about with Will Levis. They get the puzzle, they dump it out the box, they say, here, fix it. So what team wants to put this puzzle together? What team wants to construct it? What team is going to say, I can do this? I see Will Levis. I know how to put this thing together. I have the right coaches. I have a system that's going to buy into them. We're going to do this. Prototypical height, weight, size, and throwing power. We got to get the accuracy under control. We got to get some of the decision maker under control, like we saw with Josh Allen. And people want to say this is not Josh Allen. Is it really not Josh Allen? Is it really? I mean, we look at him coming out of Wyoming, raw. We're not talking about him being Josh Allen right now. We're talking about in the draft process, who do we want to compare him to? And I think I see some similarities to what I saw out of Josh Allen coming out of that draft. But teams are high on him. And I've heard that he is QB1 in some rooms. I think it's right now, I think it's between Bryce Young and Will Levis. Either you're very high on Will Levis or you're very low on him. And CJ Stroud seems to be that middle guy. So I think he's going to be quarterback 2. And he is quarterback 2 in this mock draft. We have him going to the Texans, Will Anderson to the Cardinals, Jalen Carter to the Bears. Those are some of the things that we have understood. But now let's get into some more controversy. We got Tyree Wilson at this 5th pick for the Seahawks. And thinking about it, I said, Tyree Wilson, you know, I feel good about Tyree Wilson. I think he's good. He can help that team, especially on the edge against the run. But what's his pass rush upside? And I look at it. I see number 5 and number 20. And I'm going to put it up here. We see my post. I said this on Facebook, and I said it to a couple other guys. I said we have to seriously start considering Aaron Rodgers going to the Seattle Seahawks. And let me talk about what I say with that mindset. They say we're not going to trade him to the NFC. Aaron Rodgers is old. You don't have to worry about him that long. You're not contenders, so you're not going to be worried about anybody that's contending in the NFC because you're not there. All right? So also that you have 5 and you have 20. That can get you Aaron Rodgers and maybe something else, but you can get 15 from Green Bay. They get 5, they get 20, you get Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's a fit for both teams. Looking at what Seattle wants to do, I see Tyree Wilson. But do I really think Tyree Wilson is a top 5 pick? Or do I think that's just this draft? I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think Tyree Wilson is a talented prospect, but I think it's some of the draft. Lucas Van Ness, a guy who's projected to go high in this draft. And we look at a film and some might say that doesn't pop off my screen, but it's all the tools, all the traits. And I think that's an interesting angle we can take on this thing. I'm not saying that's exactly the right move. I'm not saying just give up the picks and get Aaron Rodgers, but I think about it. Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, those tight ends, that offensive line, that young defense. So we're going to add more to that in the draft. I can see it, all right? And I think it would be great for both teams. For the Green Bay, they get number 5. They can go Will Levis, and it's all about what do they think about Will Levis, because somebody's in play for this 5th or this 6th pick. Does Detroit want to trade back and bolster that up? Let somebody else get Will Levis before the Raiders can get him at 7, and that's going to take me into number 6 and number 7. We got Myles Murphy and Will Levis. Interesting. I see the Falcons. I see the Panthers. And I think the Panthers are a team who's definitely in play for this thing, because if we trade up, now we can make this really interesting. Anthony Richardson, though, that's why I say, I wouldn't do it if I was the Panthers. I think maybe the Falcons, maybe the Titans are even in play for this thing. Maybe even the Jets. We got a lot of teams, depending on how they think of Will Levis, depending on what I'm hearing, Will Levis is a guy for a lot of people. And it's crazy because I think if the Colts don't go up and get him, because the Colts are high on Will Levis, if they don't go up and get him, somebody's coming. Somebody's coming to 5. I think it's ideally 5. I think the Lions stand pat where they at. I think that 5th pick is where we're coming in. We're getting somebody with a trade. And now I want to talk about number 8. The Falcons going with Peter Skoronski. I like that move. Caleb McGarry, another tackle, going into free agency. We don't want to overpay for a guy. It wouldn't hurt to go Peter Skoronski. I really like Lucas Van Ness to the Falcons, but this isn't bad either. And the Panthers, this is why I say it's not ideal for them to trade up for Will Levis. Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, 2 puzzles. And I mean, this puzzle may be hard difficulty. This puzzle may be expert difficulty. You're getting 2 extremely difficult puzzles to put together and crack. So, I mean, I wouldn't see it. I don't, unless they really, really, really fall in love with Will Levis, I see them standing pat, and Anthony Richardson is that guy for them. I think they can lean on the run game like they did last year, lean on that defense, and who knows, this can maybe even be a playoff team. Give them a condensed offense, RPO system, whatever you want to do, and let him use his athletic ability. I love it, all right? Philadelphia, Brian Brzee. This was the pick that threw me off of this thing, all right? I don't know what world Philadelphia goes Brian Brzee. And teams are high on him. Teams aren't high on him. It's mixed. It's really a mixed thing with Brian Brzee. And I look at the tape. I look at the injuries. And I think that second-year tape at Clemson, that's screaming to me top 5 pick. That's screaming to me I'm neck and neck with Jalen Carter. But this previous year. And now we're starting to spot flaws in this game. We're starting to nitpick it a little bit. So that was the interesting pick to me. Does Philly trade back? Does Philly trade back out of this pick? It's real interesting because Philly, a team who has a couple needs. We're looking at even a slot receiver. I didn't really think they needed receiver going into this thing, but I think to add somebody in that slot. You got Devontae, A.J. Brown on the outside. What is it going to be with Quez Watkins? We don't know. So that was interesting. The Titans with Paris Johnson, I think that's good. And I want to talk about these next 3 picks. Paris Johnson, Quentin Johnson, Broderick Jones. So the Falcons also got Peter Skoronski. That's 3 top tackles going. So now we think about teams like Pittsburgh. We think about other teams who may be in play for a tackle. They can't get that right there because it's going now. Quentin Johnson to the Texans. That's interesting. Me, I'm a Jordan Addison guy. I think Jordan Addison is my wide receiver 1, but teams are liking Quentin Johnson. I like Quentin Johnson. I just think about the fit, and Quentin Johnson has some things you can't teach. You can't coach. That height, that speed. I think he might run in the high 4.3s. So don't be surprised when you get a 6'4" guy doing that. Just don't. Because I'm telling you right now it's going to happen. And I don't feel bad about that pick. Now, the Patriots at 14, Todd McShay has them going Joey Porter. And I think that's interesting. They don't really have a guy who we may lean on as an outside corner. We look at Marcus Jones, Jonathan Jones, Jack Jones. I think that's a nice corner group. But what is Jonathan Jones going to do? In free agency, what is he going to do with the Patriots? And Joey Porter Jr., I think because those tackles are off the board, because Quentin Johnson is off the board, it's interesting, all right? And I wouldn't mind going right here. I really want them to get one of those tackles. I really want them to get Quentin Johnson. That is my ideology for the Patriots, but it's right here in this mock draft. They just can't get it. Green Bay, Michael Mayer. I have that. I'm high on Michael Mayer to Green Bay, so it's nothing really to talk about there. Commanders going Devon Witherspoon. This is interesting because I think the difference between Devon Witherspoon and Joey Porter Jr., it's all about the size. It's all about the size. And the Patriots, they want a true outside corner, which I believe Devon Witherspoon is. I believe he's that outside corner. But when we talk about it, we're thinking now, the size. And that's really the only knock on him. He's not the biggest, but he plays big. He can hit. I think he's the hardest hitting DB out of any DB you're going to see in this first round. So, he's a great tackler. He's solid in man and zone coverage, instinctive as they get. So, that's the Patriots. That may be their prototypical size for their corner. The Steelers at 17, my team, we get Christian Gonzalez. That's great. I really want Broderick Jones, but he doesn't drop that far in this mock draft. Lions get Kelly Ringo, and that's an interesting thing. We talk about Cam Smith. We also talk about the guy from Maryland, Deonte Banks. Kelly Ringo is in the first round in this draft. So that's telling you a lot of people are low on Kelly Ringo, but some teams are not. He has some blunders in this past season for Georgia, but we can't ignore what he is, all right? He's stoutly built as a corner. He's a big guy, all right? He can cover, has some issues in coverage, but that could all be cleaned up with NFL-style coaching. When we look at the skill, just the raw talent, it shoots off the board. If we're talking about raw talent, I'll have him up there with Christian Gonzalez. I have him up there with Joey Porter. But he goes right here, cornerback 4. We got Tampa Bay going Lucas Van Ness. They need something on the edge. Tanner McKee is a guy some people are trying to link to Tampa Bay. I wouldn't go there. And Lucas Van Ness, a guy who may, by the end of this thing, he may be top 10. He may be Philly. He may be Atlanta Falcons. So we don't know. But right here, he goes to Tampa Bay, and I love that move for them. Versatile, can play up and down the line, played on the interior for Iowa. What is he going to do for Tampa Bay? That's going to be, if they get him, we're going to see. Seattle going Brian Branch. I love the move. I think adding to that secondary to Tariq Woolen, Kobe Bryant. I wouldn't hate going secondary here. I think maybe Osiris Torrance could be in play. Los Angeles Chargers. Cam Smith. I'm high on Cam Smith, as some people may not be. I like that move, though. The most controversial move we have in this thing, he has Bijan Robinson going to the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not going to lie, Todd McShay, I can't see it. I can't see Bijan Robinson going to the Ravens. New offensive coordinator. We're getting Lamar. Why not receiver here? I don't understand it. Jordan Addison still on the board. Jackson Smith and Jigba still on the board. Zay Flowers still on the board. I don't know. I read up on it, and J.K. Dobbins fighting injury. Their running back room has stayed injured for the past couple of years, but I don't know. I think watching these past Super Bowls, these past playoffs, you have to understand you need a number one receiver. Why do you don't want to pay Lamar Jackson? You say you're not convinced with his throwing, and then you don't want to give him a number one receiver. I don't know. But Minnesota Vikings, Jordan Addison. That's a spicy one, but it's not bad because Cam Smith is going, Kelly Ringo is going, Christian Gonzalez, Devin Witherspoon, all those guys are going. And I really want them to go corner, but they can't in this mock draft. So Jordan Addison is kind of getting what you got, getting the best player on the board left. So I don't hate it. I wouldn't reach for a corner. Like I said, Deonte Banks, Emmanuel Forbes may be in play, may slide into that first round. I like both of those corners. Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Jacksonville Jags. I like it. That's interesting because now we're looking at Jackson Smith, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley. That's dangerous. And I think that's the type of firepower that you need to compete in the AFC. So I don't hate it. New York Giants, Zay Flowers. One thing we do see, there's no linebackers in this thing. No linebackers in the first round. No Trenton Simpson. No Drew Sanders. Two guys who I think will be in play, especially after the draft combine, to go in the first round. But we don't get that right here. I don't know. I don't know if Zay Flowers, I know he spices up that offense. He adds something. You get better immediately with Zay Flowers. But is he that number one guy? He was in college, but the size. I like him as a slot guy. I think he's just a weapon all around. How will the Giants use him? That's what we're going to have to see. Dallas, Osiris Torrance. I love it. Add in depth. He may not start right away with something that you already have on that team, but, I can't say that's a bad pick. I think that the best guard, the best interior offensive lineman, if you want to say Peter Skoronski is maybe a guard, that's something up for debate, but I like it. Jahmyr Gibbs to Buffalo, I like it. I've seen teams getting low on Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't know why. I think it's because of the positional value with the running back, but we got two running backs going in the first round in this thing. Bengals, Dalton Kincaid. Interesting pick. Interesting. Keon White to New Orleans. Anton Harrison to Philly. Jalen Duncan to KC. Overall, there's some controversial things. There's some things we can talk about. I want to know what you in the comments think. I've talked about the picks. One more pick I want to talk about is Anton Harrison. How do we feel about the Eagles going Brian Brzee and Anton Harrison? Is that a successful first round for us? Keon White, a guy that's going up draft boards, I'm high on, produced in the Senior Bowl. New Orleans getting him. Marcus Davenport, a guy who may not be there next year. Jalen Duncan for KC. I don't know what his immediate role is on this team, but I think when you add a lineman with the tools, with the size, it just depends on how they develop him. So Dalton Kincaid to the Bengals is interesting. I don't think they need more weapons. When looking at the KC game, what really changed is when Tyler Boyd got injured. So it wouldn't hurt, though. It definitely wouldn't hurt. I think Bijan Robinson to the Baltimore Ravens is my most questionable thing. What do you guys think about this draft? Let me know in the comments. We out.